Welcome, and thank you for joining us. My name is Katrina Burgess, and I am the director of the Henry J. Leir Institute at the Fletcher School at Tufts University. The Leir Institute seeks to advance human security through pioneering research, education, and policy engagement aimed at the protection, empowerment, and well-being of all people. We support faculty and students working on migration, corruption, conflict resolution, international law, human rights, gender, and global public health, among other issues. I am thrilled and honored to be presiding over today's ceremony to present the 2020 Henry J. Leir Human Security Award. The award was created in 2015 to honor Fletcher alumni who have made significant contributions to the scholarship and/or practice of human security. It is named after Henry J. Leir in recognition of his legacy as a philanthropist, as well as the generous support of the Leir charitable foundations to Tufts University. Born in 1900 to Jewish parents in Germany, Mr. Leir persevered through the early loss of his father, financial hardship, and forced displacement to build a global business empire and become a leading philanthropist. His vision of world prosperity and individual accomplishment led him to work tirelessly on behalf of education, nutrition, medical science, diplomacy, and humanitarianism until his death in 1998. His philanthropy is carried on by the Leir Charitable Foundations, whose president, Margaret Gibbous, has become a valued friend of the Fletcher School and the Henry J. Leir Institute. We had intended to hold this ceremony in person last April, but as you all know, COVID-19 had other plans. Rather than delaying any longer, we chose to produce a virtual ceremony that would retain the gravitas of a live event while embracing virtual technologies and reaching a worldwide audience. I hope you will find it uplifting and engaging as we honor our recipient and celebrate his many accomplishments. I am now pleased to hand the floor to Tony Monaco, the president of Tufts University, who will offer a few remarks on the importance of the Leir legacy for the Tufts community.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this award ceremony. I wanted to share a few words about the vision and generosity of supporters like Henry J. Leir, especially the role he has played in the institution that Tufts University has become today. After striking up a friendship with the then president Jean Meier in the 1970s, Mr. Leir became a major supporter and benefactor to the university, with gifts in support of the Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy, the School of Medicine, the European Center in Tauar, France, the Elizabeth Meier Campus Center, the Fletcher School, the Henry J. Leir Chair in Humanitarian Studies, the Leir Scholars Abroad Program, and the Henry J. Leir Institute. The support of Mr. Leir and the Leir Charitable Foundations has been instrumental in making Tufts a place where research and teaching on human security has flourished. As a result, our students leave Tufts equipped with the values, skills, and knowledge needed to be change makers in today's challenging world. Thanks to Mr. Leir, our alumni have made significant contributions to ensure the security for all human beings across the globe, especially during this critical period in human history. This year's award recipient is one such alumnus in whose work we take enormous pride and which inspires us to give hope for a better tomorrow. It is my pleasure to now invite Fletcher School Dean Rachel Kite to tell us more about the Leir Institute, the importance of human security, and to introduce the recipient of the Henry J. Leir Institute's 2020 Human Security Award. Thank you.
Hello. In 2000, Fletcher Dean General John Rogers Galvin sought to create a research institution that would allow our students and faculty to focus their studies on the eradication of poverty, misery, oppression and violence in troubled regions around the world. With this goal in mind, the Institute of Human Security was founded. Under a new name and with renewed commitment to its cause, the Henry J. Leir Institute continues to lead in advancing human security around the world and within our borders. The past year has reminded us of the many human security challenges that continue to plague humanity. Abject poverty, ravaging diseases, religious extremism, racism, bigotry, sexism, corruption, environmental degradation, among many others. Studying and advocating for freedom from fear and freedom from want is a more salient goal than ever before. The Fletcher School has always been known for its interdisciplinary curriculum and its commitment to training the global leaders that will solve tomorrow's complex challenges. It brings me great pleasure to present the 2020 Henry J. Leir Human Security Award to Patrick Meier. Patrick is the Executive Director and co-founder of We Robotics. His name is synonymous with the field of humanitarian technology. He uses technology to scale the positive impact of humanitarian interventions and sustainable development programs. His pioneering approaches and his commitment to co-creating solutions through flying labs ensures that innovation is in the hands of those closest to the challenges. He maintains ties to many institutions of learning and advises private companies. He is eloquent in explaining how technology can be used to achieve our development goals, and his clear thinking and deep empathy make him a transformative leader. Last and by no means least, he has his drone pilot's license. Before turning to our main event, I'd like to share a few words from Margot Gibbous, the President of Leir Charitable Foundations, on behalf of the Leir Board. She says, "Today, I have the great pleasure to congratulate the Human Security Award recipient, Patrick Meier, on behalf of Henry J. Leir for his impressive and important achievements in the fields of humanitarian technology and innovation. Mr. Meier's contribution to our society to fully understand the potential and power, but also the pitfalls and dangers of digital humanitarianism is extremely valuable. It gives us a glimpse of what being a humanitarian will mean in the years and decades to come. Mr. Leir would have been delighted that the award goes to you. Congratulations." And now we will see a video explaining and highlighting some of Patrick's accomplishments.
I am passionate about maps. What if our world were lit up by information instead of light bulbs? What would that pulse look like? It's truly stunning. It's like a brain synapses just swarming. And needless to say, this has never happened in the history of humanitarian response. And again, these were not humanitarian professionals who've necessarily done this before, just ordinary people. This is not a story about technology at the end of the day. Those dots exist on those maps because this is this story about being human, about humanity and starting a movement. It's ultimately a story about hope and the belief that we can do this differently and we can live in a different world.
My name is Patrick Meier. I'm a crisis mapper.
He always knew that he wanted it to be about building this local capacity and resilience, but they needed a hook, so to speak, and robotics and drones were a really good, kind of in-demand, cutting edge. And Patrick was always thinking a few steps ahead. So not everybody was thinking about drones at the time, but they were clearly going to be a game changer. And so they started V Robotics. They named it Robotics to make sure that it wasn't limited to drones.
UAV has a lot of potential. In our ground releases, we can only release in areas where we can access it by vehicles. But with this UAV, we can access those difficult areas.
one of the problems with the creation of the code of conduct, and this is like self-criticism, and I think Patrick would be one of the first people to identify this, is that it was written largely by people that were in, global north academic community, industry, people in large-scale humanitarian organizations, people that already had a certain amount of social power and authority, and it was about applying that in a better way towards communities in the global south or anywhere that happened to be in some kind of crisis situation. But quickly that becomes not sufficient. It's like, well, there's already people there that already do all of this. They're not actually in these conversations. How would you actually, it's great that we had this first thing that was a huge amount of work, but what's the next conversation? How do you actually build inclusion? How do you make it so that, we're being informed, by the communities that are themselves affected?
After all, first responders by definition are going to be local. They're going to be the first one on the scene, and the way we're looking at this is, why not empower those who are most close to the scene, who have the local knowledge and understand local dynamics, because they will be more effective once they have access to these technologies, rather than parachuting in a kind of top-down approach. So that's the Flying Labs Network, operational right now in 26 countries across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. The way we work with these local experts are through Flying Labs, and these are local centers of expertise that run entirely by local experts who we then train, equip, and support as needed in the use of drones and robotics for positive social impact. And so these centers of expertise include local drone pilots, GIS analysts, and engineers who are trained and on the ready to deploy at the request of different partners in their own countries. Ms. Amrita Lal, who coordinates our Pacific Flying Labs, deployed with the Red Cross to the disaster-affected areas. And by doing so, Amrita became the first local drone pilot to respond in a major disaster in her own country, and by default, the first woman, the first young person to be involved in humanitarian operations as a drone pilot in the Pacific region. The point here is that there's less and less need and reason for these international organizations like the World Bank, the UN, the Red Cross, to hire foreign companies when they can hire locally. Fact is, demand for these kinds of drone services, robotic services, is increasing. This is the fourth industrial revolution after all. But there's no reason this demand cannot be met first and foremost locally. Ever since launching our Flying Labs in these countries and other countries, hundreds of local drone natives are finally participating in these projects. Some of them are even leading some of these drone projects funded by international organizations. The next time that the World Bank needs a drone team leader, they better as heck not hire me and hire Amrita and her team of local drone natives. Thank you very much.
In January 2010, when Fletcher had a team of researchers in Haiti when the earthquake hit. And at that time, Patrick was involved with Ushahidi. So once he heard about the earthquake, he started using the platform for crisis mapping the earthquake in Haiti, crowdsourcing the information on where there were problems and need and where there were resources. And as students started returning from winter break, he was training them so that they could help him with this crowdsourcing. When I returned from break, some days later, I found the basement of Cabot just covered with students, and their laptops were everywhere. They were in every room, in the hallways, they were in the chairs, they were on the floors. Their backpacks, their coats, their clothes, remains of meals were just everywhere because they were literally working around the clock, just trying to keep up with the information. They weren't even going home. And I looked at this and it looked to me like the biggest international information and communication project ever at Fletcher. And so as head of the field, I started providing them funds for meals and other needs. And soon the Hitachi Center and the Fletcher School itself, also started providing funds funding to them for this effort, for equipment and other needs. And this effort eventually spread to include alums and associates of Patrick, and of the other students in different time zones so that our students could sleep and even start their classes. The US State Department gave Patrick a short code for people to use to relay the information. And the platform became the primary source of information used by the relief workers with the Red Cross, Coast Guard, State Department, and all the other rescue organizations involved. And Secretary of State Clinton even referred to it in a speech. This is just the most remarkable thing I've ever seen at Fletcher or really anywhere.
While you have many qualities, it is three that really stand out in my eyes. Your fearlessness, your true heart, and your humility. These three combined are like a secret sauce. And I believe that it's this secret sauce that lies at the base of many of our successes in view robotics.
In order to affect the problems that brought the catastrophe of the drone applications in Nepal about, you actually have to affect those power relations. And that's a risk, like that's a real risk to the people that are involved in that, to try to affect those power relations. And Patrick's one of these insane people in the world that actually tries to get out and solve these power dynamics.
But he has the humbleness to know that he's got to change, and that the way that we do development work has to change. And he's constantly promoting the different local communities. Like in the last day or so, I've seen him post blog posts and videos. I think there was one video from Nigeria that he posted. I think it was Nigeria. I hope I'm right there, of a woman who was on television talking about the flying lab there. And I thought, well, he uses his network and his power to advance other people who are building their networks in power, right? So he has thousands of people in his network. By sharing that video, I now know that there's a super strong woman who was on Nigerian television sharing her story, and this is not his story, this is her story and her community's story. And so that's the power of network community. It's not about a blog post, it's not about a video, it's about the sharing it and making sure that people know other stories and other voices.
I have such great memories, not only of having you come guest lecture in my class, which I very much appreciated, but all the work you did, the walk and the talk.
I mean, I would maybe just say one word is passionate and driven. Yeah.
Patrick, I'm very excited to send you this virtual greeting and congratulate you to receiving the Human Security Award. What a wonderful recognition of your work.
Patrick Meier, congratulations.
Congratulations, Patrick.
Oh, congratulations, Patrick.
Congratulations again, Patrick, for winning the award. Savor it.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you so very much for this incredibly thoughtful and kind award that certainly was definitely not expected. I'm truly very grateful for this very kind recognition. So I want to really thank you sincerely, all of you, and Dean Kite and Professor Babbitt for this. I had very much looked forward to reconnecting with many of you and meeting many of you in person at the Fletcher School. Had my flight booked, ready to go, and of course the world has changed in more ways than anybody could have possibly imagined since receiving this wonderful news from Professor Babbitt. So that being said, it's at least grateful that I get to reconnect virtually with all of you and with the Fletcher community. It's understatement and maybe a cliche, or I don't know what to say, that Fletcher has changed my life in immeasurable ways. Not only on the personal level, having met my partner at Fletcher 12 years ago, a fellow Fletcher student, but of course also thanks to the faculty, the courses, the different institutes across the Fletcher School and across Tufts University. I mean, the impact that all that has had individually, and then you sum it all up, and it's just mind-blowing, incalculable. And so I feel I should be the one giving out awards to all of you and to Fletcher for the gratitude that I feel for everything that Fletcher brought me, and of course including friendships. And I've got to say, it was really due and thanks to a number of fellow friends, Fletcher classmates, that I'm on the road I'm on today. They opened, and keep in mind, this was 2008, so well before the Arab Spring and the use of, prominent use of social media and new technologies and activism and so on. It was before those days. But these fellow Fletcher classmate friends of mine opened my eyes, opened my mind to a completely new world of new media, digital technologies, emerging technologies. And while I was working with some of the technology space, I was just scratching the surface. And it is absolutely thanks to these fellow Fletcher friends that opened this whole new world for me, and that I since then, have not looked back. It's just been an incredible journey, thanks to those very first Fletcher days. So again, just can't express the level of gratitude and just, real gratitude. I owe so much from all of Fletcher in so many ways. And I was invited very kindly to share this acceptance speech, not something that I'm very used to doing, and so asked for some tips on how one actually gives an acceptance speech, and was asked to share any advice, any tips to fellow Fletcher students, and so I will. I will also keep this short because I can talk and talk and talk and talk. I am not one to, say, just have to follow your passion and follow your dreams, and, I'm not going to tell you not to either. But I think it's just too easy to say, life is not that simple. If it were as just a matter of following your dreams, then everybody would be doing it. But there's something called real life, and life will get in the way from time to time, and make carpe diem more of a luxury for many of us. And so I'm not going to say drop everything, throw caution to the wind, just follow your dreams. Listen to your dreams. Don't lose sight of your dreams. But what I would say instead is maybe just one incredible thing that happened to me at Fletcher that I think is worth sharing, and then fast forward to just now and give a piece of advice based on what I'm doing now. I'm going to go back to these Fletcher friends of mine who opened my mind and eyes to this whole new world of emerging technology. We decided to create a joint blog 12 years ago. I wonder if it's still online. I'll have to check. And I'd never blogged before. A number of them had. That's just how much way ahead they were than I was at the time in the technology space. And so they introduced me to blogging. And so we started a joint blog where we were talking about technology, international affairs, cybersecurity, social media, new media, the role of those technologies in development and humanitarian efforts, and public health. So we started this blog, and I got hooked. I ended up just blogging multiple times a day, just could not get enough of it, because as I realized later, blogging gave me an opportunity to think. I was writing in order to think. And blogging helped me refine my thinking and to think more critically in a different way than you might think when you're writing a policy memo for a class or writing a longer applied research paper for one of the Fletcher classes. Blogging was something completely different for me. Short pieces, you had to keep it relatively short, so you had to be very concise and really think about the messaging. And it was an incredible way then to just get ideas out. And so, literally because I couldn't get enough of blogging, I realized that in order not to take over our joint blog, I just started my own blog at irevolutions.org. And literally then blogged for a good 10 years. And it's incredible to say, but thanks to the blog, thanks to the blog posts, I literally would get consulting contracts. Literally, one case, I wrote a blog post. A few weeks later, I get an email from UNDP in Sudan that says, can we contract you as a consultant to do X, Y, and Z related to your blog post. I got invitations to conferences, keynote invites, you name it, because of blogging, because of being on this kind of social media. And it connected me to people who I would not have been able to connect with otherwise. I would have not found them, they would not have found me. And these individuals also were just pivotal in the roads that I've taken since. And so my one advice to you, and I realize that blogging maybe is not as hip or is not as is not the today's main platform. Maybe it is, up to you to decide. But I think the take-home message that I would share is to say how important it is to have your own brand. And of course, when you start talking about branding, I understand that people are allergic to that, because a lot of it is fake. A lot of it is just exaggeration. It's just, it's false advertising. But stay away from that and be authentic, be true, be honest about what you don't know. But build your identity, build your online identity, build your own brand, independently of whatever academic institution you are affiliated with, or whatever job, whether you're, with an international organization or a company or a startup. Regardless, it's so important that you keep your own brand, because that will be the one thing you can take with you from job to job or university to university or what have you. So don't underestimate that. It literally, I don't know that I would have had the success and the opportunities that I've had so early on were it not for this independent blog and brand that I got hooked on. I think that's what I would say. I'm already realizing and embarrassed that it's 10 minutes that I've been babbling. So I'll just make it short in terms of the second point I wanted to share. I've been, since the Fletcher School, since my fellow friends introduced me to this whole new world of emerging technologies, I've been very much deeply involved in what some have called the humanitarian technology space, or the technology for good space. And the one thing I would say, and I think it's applicable no matter the discipline, no matter the area of expertise and interests you have, one advice that I would give is to ask a very simple one-word question in the work that you do, which is who? Who? For me, in the humanitarian technology space, this is a really powerful question, because 99% of conversations that happen within global institutions and international organizations in the humanitarian space or development, public health, when it comes to talking about emerging technologies are about, what technologies are coming up on the horizon, what new technologies, what frontier and exponential technologies should we be using in humanitarian efforts to improve humanitarian action, and how do we best use these technologies to do so. That's basically 99% of the discourse. Barely 1% is about who gets to use these technologies in the first place, right? And the reason that is there are very good reasons and multiple reasons, but it's very easy to just talk about technology and optimizing technology. That's a solvable problem if you'd like. But the who opens up a whole can of worms. Opens up questions about power and power imbalances, systemic inequality, entrenched racism, colonial ideologies that still pervade many of these global institutions. It's a very uncomfortable question to ask because of the clear answers that result in asking that question. But that is a question that we all need to ask in anything that we do. It is a question of power, and we need to be cognizant of that, expose that, and then do everything we can to shift that power, because new technologies and emerging technologies are not going to resolve long-term historical inequalities and social injustice, discrimination, racism, and so on. It is about shifting power. So that would be my second piece of advice, is tackle the who question, tackle the power question. That's where we're at now. That's what we need to do in order to actually have systems change, which we and this planet dearly, dearly need. So with that, sincere thanks, Dean Kite, fellow deans, professors, including Professor Babbitt, Fletcher. Thank you for everything, everything you've given me. I am incredibly grateful.
Congratulations, Patrick. Thank you for that wonderful speech. I also want to thank President Monaco, Dean Kite, and all of you for joining us for this virtual ceremony. Patrick's innovative and life-changing work reaffirms my pride in being part of the Fletcher community. Our students are amazing, and we are privileged to be part of their journey. I wish everyone health and safety in these trying times and look forward to building a better world together.